South China Sea, 3:33 p.m. Routine turns to crisis. A United States Navy warship operating in international waters, tracking clear skies, suddenly detects dozens of fast, low-flying targets, too small for planes and too many for patrol craft. Radar shows multiple simultaneous contacts at low altitude. This is not a manned aircraft. This is not a conventional patrol. This is a coordinated drone swarm. In this real-world reconstruction, we break down how sensors, protocols, and human judgment confronted the threat using only published naval doctrine. We describe radar confirmation, threat classification, defensive posture shifts, electronic warfare readiness, and command-level decision-making. But what actually happens on the bridge as those blips multiply, and why did the standoff end without a single shot? The ANSBI-6 radar cycles every 15 seconds, sweeping the horizon and sky in silent loops. At 3:33 p.m., the display fills with new returns. Dozens of faint contacts appear at low altitude, scattered across a broad arc. Each blip is small, barely above sea clutter, moving fast, hugging the surface. The radar's automation assigns track numbers in rapid succession. 1, then 5, then more than 20. The computer's fusion cycle works to correlate the data, filtering out noise and distinguishing real objects from interference. Within seconds, the system builds a baseline, multiple contacts all inbound, all closing simultaneously from different bearings. The identification friend or foe. System queries each track, no response, no transponder codes. The radar's algorithms flag the contacts as unknown. The console's alert tone sounds, repeating at intervals as new tracks join the cluster. Operators watch as the track count rises, 12, then 24, then over 30. The display updates every 15 seconds, but the contacts are moving too quickly for comfort. No visual confirmation yet, no electronic emissions detected. The contacts remain silent, invisible to every sensor except radar. The Combat Information Center logs each return. The system's automation links the tracks, searching for patterns. Are they flying in formation? Are they coordinated? The data suggests a distributed approach. No single axis, no clear leader. The radar's software flags the event as a saturation pattern, a profile consistent with a swarm. Operators shift focus from individual tracks to the group as a whole. The sheer number of returns outpaces manual tracking. The system's automated routines assign priorities based on speed, heading, and proximity. The baseline is set, dozens of unidentified low-flying targets closing in from multiple vectors. The radar's 15-second cycle becomes the heartbeat of the ship's awareness. The next decision will depend on what the sensors report next. The Combat Information Center shifts to multi-sensor verification. Operators cue the electro-optical and infrared gimbal, swinging its lens across the sea at the bearing of the radar tracks. The electro-optical and infrared system, mounted high above the deck, scans for thermal and visual signatures, anything that might break the horizon or emit heat. Within 30 seconds, the first returns appear. Small, fast-moving objects, each barely larger than a bird, reflecting sunlight and radiating faint warmth against the cooler surface of the water. The gimbal tracks their movement, confirming the radar's assessment. These contacts are real. They are not weather balloons, not birds, not drifting debris. The number of contacts matches the radar's count, over 24, each following an independent course, but all converging toward the ship. Simultaneously, the electronic support measures receiver begins its sweep. The SLQ-32 array listens for radio frequencies and data link emissions, searching for signs of remote control or coordination among the objects. The spectrum remains quiet. No command signals, no telemetry, no electronic handshake. Yet the absence of emissions only deepens the concern. These are non-cooperative targets, operating in silence. The Electronic Support Measures Operator logs the negative result, noting that a silent swarm often indicates pre-programmed flight paths or autonomous behavior rather than manual control. The combat system's data fusion engine overlays electro-optical and infrared imagery with radar tracks, matching each visual contact to its radar return. The pattern holds. Dozens of low-altitude, fast-approaching drones, all without identification, all without electronic signature. The system elevates their classification from unknown to probable unmanned aerial vehicles, consistent with a coordinated swarm. Automated routines flag the event for command attention, pushing the threat assessment to the Tactical Action Officer's console. Within the first minute, the cross-sensor confirmation is complete. The electro-optical and infrared imagery, the radar tracks, and the silence detected by electronic support measures converge on a single conclusion. The contacts are real, coordinated, and inbound. The ship's defensive posture shifts again, moving from routine monitoring to a heightened state of readiness. The next step will require command-level decisions, including classification, escalation, and the first moves in the ship's layered defense. Detection of small, unmanned aerial systems over open water is a race against physics. At sea, the radar cross-section of a typical drone in this class is less than 0.01 square meters. For the SPY-6 radar, that means reliable detection at roughly 12 nautical miles, sometimes less, depending on the altitude and angle of approach. Sea clutter complicates the picture further. Low-flying objects blend with the constant background of waves and spray, masking their presence until they rise just enough above the horizon. The radar's algorithms work to filter out false echoes, but each pass risks missing a real target if the return is too faint or too brief. Ducting can sometimes carry radar energy farther, but it can just as easily hide contacts. The ship's sensors are optimized for missiles and aircraft, objects with a larger radar signature, flying higher and easier to spot at distance. Small drones, flying low and fast, exploit the blind spots. In these conditions, the window for reaction narrows to minutes. From first detection at 12 nautical miles, a drone traveling at 80 knots can close the gap in under 9 minutes. If the radar loses the contact in sea clutter, the timeline shrinks even further. Operators must balance the demands of filtering out noise with the risk of missing a genuine threat. The radar's pulse repetition frequency, scan rate, and signal processing all play a role in how quickly and accurately a contact can be confirmed. Visual and infrared sensors help, but their range is limited by weather, light, and the curvature of the Earth. The Combat Information Center relies on every available tool, yet the limitations are clear. The ship's defensive posture must be set before positive identification is certain. Every second lost to uncertainty is a second less for command to decide. This is why in a saturation event, higher command is notified almost immediately. The situation is not just about the number of contacts, but the physics of detection itself. The ship's crew faces a shrinking window for action, defined by the speed and size of the threat, the constraints of radar, and the relentless advance of the swarm. Urgent, disciplined decision-making and posture dominance are the tools that create deterrence in these encounters. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watchstanders move with practiced precision. The Air Defense Officer, ADO, stands at the center of the decision web. Every new track, every sensor feed routes through this post. The ADO reviews radar and electro-optical and infrared overlays, confirms the absence of identification friend or foe responses, and notes the growing number of inbound contacts. The saturation profile is clear. The ADO calls out the developing picture to the Tactical Action Officer, TAO, who holds direct authority for the ship's defensive posture. The TAO listens as the ADO summarizes the sensor data. More than 30 unidentified low-flying objects are all converging at speed, none responding to electronic queries. The responsibility of the TAO is to translate this information into action. The first step is to elevate the ship's readiness. The TAO issues an order to set Condition 3, heightened alert, weapon systems on standby, all defensive stations manned. Crew members across the ship receive the alert. Weapons technicians move to their consoles. The Phalanx close-in weapon system is powered up. The vertical launch system is checked for readiness. Damage control teams stand by in case of escalation. The ADO continues to monitor the sensor feeds, coordinating with the electronic warfare officer to ensure the SLQ-32 suite is actively searching for any emissions. The absence of signals is logged, and the possibility of autonomous or pre-programmed drones is raised. The TAO requests a formal threat assessment from the identification supervisor, who confirms that the contacts meet the criteria for probable unmanned aerial vehicles. The chain of reporting is clear. ADO to TAO, TAO to Commanding Officer, CO. Each advisory is documented in the ship's log, creating a record of every decision and action. The Commanding Officer, CO, is briefed directly. The TAO outlines the situation, the classification of the threat, and the recommended posture. The CO listens, weighs the evidence, and authorizes the shift to full defensive readiness. Every step is deliberate, every order tracked. The ship's systems move from routine operations to a posture designed to deter, defend, and if necessary, respond. The advisory flow is seamless, built on doctrine, and reinforced by discipline. The next moments will test the entire chain. Rules of engagement define the boundaries for every response at sea. In the Combat Information Center, the chain of command operates within strict legal and procedural limits. No matter how quickly the threat develops, every decision must be anchored in authorization and accountability. The commanding officer alone holds the authority to approve any use of force. Before a single weapon can be armed, the situation must meet the criteria for positive identification and hostile intent. The presence of dozens of inbound drones, unidentified, silent, and converging, raises the threat level, but does not in itself unlock the option for a kinetic response. The Tactical Action Officer documents each phase of the escalation in the ship's digital log. Every sensor return, every advisory, every shift in defensive posture is recorded in real time. These records are not just for immediate reference. They become the evidentiary backbone for any after-action review, investigation, or legal inquiry. The Combat Information Center's voice circuits are also recorded, capturing the precise wording of each order and acknowledgement. This documentation ensures that every step, from initial detection to the highest state of readiness, can be reconstructed and justified if challenged. Documentation is central to that reconstruction. The rules of engagement require more than a perceived threat. The commanding officer must affirm that the contacts show clear hostile intent, an action or behavior that leaves no doubt about their purpose. In doctrine, this could mean a direct attack, a maneuver that threatens the safety of the ship, or clear evidence of a weapon being prepared. Until then, All defensive systems remain on standby, weapons are powered, but safeties stay engaged. Electronic warfare options, such as jamming, may be authorized as non-kinetic measures, but even these require a documented decision. The process is methodical. The Tactical Action Officer, the Air Defense Officer, and the Electronic Warfare Officer each log their recommendations. The commanding officer's decisions are entered with timestamps, creating a transparent chain of responsibility. This disciplined approach is designed to balance readiness with restraint, ensuring that the ship's actions are legally defensible and operationally sound. As the swarm closes in, every second is accounted for, every action justified. The ship stands ready, but the threshold for engagement remains firmly under command authority, locked by doctrine and law. Weapons controllers move quickly, executing the sequence drilled into muscle memory. On the outer perimeter, the ship's long-range missiles, Standard Missile 2 and Evolved Sea Sparrow, are spun up in their launch cells. Each missile system checks its own status, running built-in diagnostics, reporting green lights to the central console. The vertical launch system can go from cold to ready in under 3 minutes, but the order to arm is held at the last possible moment, locked behind the rules of engagement. Safeties remain engaged. The system is primed, not triggered. Mid-layer defenses come online next. The Rolling Airframe Missile System, designed for close-in aerial threats, powers up. Its sensors align with the combat system's track data, waiting for a hostile act or unmistakable intent. The crew at the RAM console monitors for any sign of a break in the swarm's pattern, an abrupt dive, a sudden acceleration, anything that crosses the line from approach to attack. The readiness of these weapons is measured in seconds. Once armed, they can launch within moments, but the human in the loop is never bypassed. Closest to the ship, the Phalanx close-in weapon system hums to life. The radar dome rotates as the 20mm Gatling gun cycles through its self-test. Ammunition feeds are checked, and the fire control computer synchronizes with the ship's threat library. The Phalanx can track and engage targets at less than a mile, firing up to 4,500 rounds per minute if commanded. Its readiness is the last line, the final barrier before a threat reaches the hull. Every layer is managed by a dedicated controller, each watching their own display, each waiting for the command that may never come. The doctrine is clear. Deterrence depends on visible readiness, not on firing the first shot. The entire defensive web is spun tight, but the threshold for release remains firmly under command authority. The ship's latent firepower is evident, layered in depth, but silent. The next phase will not rely on missiles or guns, but on the invisible spectrum, electronic warfare, where disruption can be as decisive as destruction. The electronic warfare officer stands at the center console, hands moving quickly over the controls of the ANS LQ-32 suite. The decision is made. Initiate non-kinetic disruption. The command is entered, and within seconds the system begins to scan for drone control frequencies, looking for data links, GPS signals, or any telltale emissions that could guide the swarm. Even with the swarm operating in silence, the electronic warfare suite launches a broad-spectrum jamming profile, targeting likely bands used for remote control and navigation. The focus is jamming. The ship's emissions policy shifts to E, M, C, O, N, Bravo. Non-essential transmitters go dark. Only the minimum required signals remain active, reducing the chance of the ship itself becoming a target. The ANS LQ-32 radiates bursts of focused noise, sweeping across the spectrum. Jamming energy floods the air, designed to overwhelm the receivers on the inbound drones. If any are relying on satellite navigation, the GPS denial signal is activated, degrading accuracy, and forcing the swarm to rely on inertial systems or pre-programmed routes. The emphasis is on emissions control. Within 2 minutes, the effects begin to show. Radar tracks that had been moving in coordinated vectors start to drift. Some contacts slow, others veer off course. The swarm's cohesion breaks down. Several drones lose formation, scattering away from the main axis of approach. The Combat Information Center logs each deviation, marking the change in behavior. The pattern of saturation dissolves into isolated, erratic tracks. The observable effect is drift. No missiles are fired, no guns are engaged. The layered defense remains silent, but the electronic attack is decisive. By the end of the engagement window, the majority of the swarm has dispersed. Some drones circling aimlessly, others dropping out of radar range altogether. The ship's operational victory is achieved not through kinetic force, but by denying the adversary control and coordination. The electronic warfare officer records the event in the log, noting the time, duration, and observed effects. The threat has been neutralized without a single round expended. Today, drone swarms and electronic warfare define the front lines, not missiles or gunfire. As autonomous systems multiply worldwide, naval standoffs now hinge on invisible battles of signal and silence. The most decisive confrontations leave no visible trace, but their stakes are real. In this new era, restraint and readiness shape the future of maritime security. The contest may be silent. Its consequences echo loudly. What do you think? Share your thoughts below.